this is a good one to talk about. Chandler's defensive wrestling is outstanding. Really, the only times I haven't seen it look good are those deep in the fight moments where he's very tired, a lot has happened, and maybe he's trying to cheat the defense, like I was talking about with Gaethje, and like I'm gonna dive on the leg, I'm gonna funk roll, I'm gonna Granby, stuff like that, rather than like I'm gonna fight the hands and try to separate and do all that really laborious hand fighting and things that you're supposed to do. Which is funny. That's the athlete option. He's like, my arms are kind of tired, so it's difficult for me to do the traditional defense of this. So I'm going to do the really difficult acrobatic maneuver instead, because that's actually easier for me to do right now. Which you see in college and all the time, people Granby instead of trying to do a traditional get up because they're tired. And just like wrestlers are a different species. It's so funny, but his defense is outstanding in pretty much every position, and it's technically sound, it's athletic, it's physical. I gushed over it in the other article that I wrote about what a fight with him and Khabib would look like. I think he would do really well in that matchup. I'm not saying I would pick him against Khabib, but I think he could really show off what he's got in that kind of situation. And I think this is a fight where he can kind of pick how he wants to do it. If he wants to pressure and try to take him down and felder him, I think that's there. I think that could work. If he wants to stand with him, I think that could work. I think there's a lot of danger, regardless. We talked about transitional submissions, definitely a factor. I think Chandler's submission defense in fights has looked good. He hasn't fought anyone who's like actually as much of a submission threat as Oliveira is. That's supposed to be what Brent Primus is, but let's be honest, that's not even a close comparison. Guy who has done a Gogo Plata versus one of the Yamauchi. That's a good one as well. He grappled him the whole time, right? Goiti. Yeah, thank you, Dan Tom. We can cheat and tell each other things in the chat. But yeah, this would be the best guard player and grappler that he's fought. If Oliveira ends up taking him down, then I would be very worried. But I just think the avenues to getting to that point, one, Oliveira would have to be pressuring him, or get a reactive shot, which I don't. With the height differential, I think that'd be really tough for Oliveira to do. It just doesn't feel like a comfortable way for Oliveira to fight this one. I think Oliveira would actually give him some space and try to outfight a little bit and counter his pressure and counter his wrestling. I think that would be his avenue, which would be smart, honestly, because I talked about it the first time I discussed Oliveira. His striking weapons are very good for anti-wrestling. They're very linear. The front snap kick and jabbing and a lot of straight hitting. And for Chandler, who's basically every reaction is hard charging level change in, no matter what he's doing, that would probably work really well. What we saw against Dan Hooker was that Chandler did take a few like stutter steps. It wasn't necessarily fainting entries, but he waited. He picked his spots a little more patiently than we've seen him in the past. Let Hooker try to get off his own offense and then picked his entries based on that. And got him in uncomfortable positions with his feet before he attacked. So that was a little smarter than we've seen from him other times in his career. Oliveira, I think, is pretty dangerous off the back foot. I believe the Jared Gordon knockout, he was on the back foot and hit him with the uppercut or something like that, and then like circled and pivoted off and hit him again or something of that nature. You can correct me, but it was off the back foot, so he's still dangerous there. He doesn't fall apart completely. He's still interested in hitting. The Kevin Lee fight is when Lee tried to pressure him or stop it, when they're colliding, all those things were still happening. And like I said, he's pulling the head and hitting him and trying to work him down, which would be a lot more available against Chandler, who is shorter. We talked about Chandler's height a lot in the last podcast, so I'm going to try not to do that again. Shorter than advertised is what we landed on. And Oliveira is pretty tall for the division. So I think that would be weird in this matchup. It does open up the body hitting, like I said before. But again, this is someone where a little bit differently than Dan Hooker, he's more consistent with his use of tools that punish level changes. It's not like one big thing, like it's a knee, where like I'm going to knock you out if you level change hard into me. But it's a lot of little things constantly that are better for that. Although we haven't seen that as much. We didn't see that as much in the Tony Ferguson fight. So he approached that one as I'm going to counter your pressure. Yeah, thanks Dan Albert telling me about the caught him on the back foot, turned him, then hit the collar's high uppercut. Cool. It was awesome. Yeah, in the Tony Ferguson fight, which was a time where Oliveira said, I'm going to counter your pressure, his volume is a lot lower. He's kind of waiting on Ferguson to do his thing, and we talked about the speed differential. Waiting on Michael Chandler is a bad idea. I think we have figured that out so far. You shouldn't do that, especially if you're not amazing defensively on the back foot. Like we said, that Oliveira is still dangerous there, but I don't think he's like the cage craft technician that's gonna be able to get out of the way. Like I think he's still gonna be able to offer offense, but if he doesn't rock you and have you in front of him not doing anything to turn off, I think you can still put him on the cage. Tom, you really inspired a lot of confidence from me in Chandler the last panel we did when you talked about his coaching situations. I don't know if that was on the record or off the record, but basically you talked about how his rise was all through Extreme Couture and the coaches he had there. He spent some time at another gym where you were aware of a coaching situation that wasn't great for him. And that's when the Will Brooks fights happened. And then he moved to Henry Hoof's gym, which has been 5 different names at this point. Hold on, it was Black Zillions. And I think for a while they weren't Black Zillions. They were like the Hako Training Center. They're by their sponsor. And then they were Hard Knocks 365. And now they're Sanford. There'll probably be another one down the line. They're not done changing their name, but it's the Henry Hoof gym. He's been developing very well there. It's been great for him. And I think he absorbs a lot from his training partners. I think him and Usman have been an amazing match. I don't know if Usman's still there full time anymore. He might have migrated permanently to Colorado, but they've been awesome for each other. I think Gilbert Burns is a training partner that could really make a difference here. Not that Burns and Oliveira are that similar as grapplers. I don't think it's like he's going to give him the looks that Oliveira is going to give him, but I think he can replicate a lot of it. And I think he can tell him, here's what you do for that to be less of a threat. And I think he's going to be going to him immediately and say, help me if I'm fighting Charles Oliveira. So I think that opened up the avenues a little bit more for him to be putting him on the cage and wrestling him, which I think he would do pretty well. Oliveira is not the best defensive wrestler because he doesn't feel like he needs to be most of the time. It's not really a factor a lot of the time for him. This would be one of the times where it would need to happen, and I think that would be a good avenue for him. So attacking the body, the speed differential, the options, like you've all said, the durability is definitely a question, I think, for both of them, but a little bit more for Chandler at this point. So it could go south quickly, but I just visualizing the win. There's just a lot more ways that I could see Chandler winning this one than the other fights. So yeah, I think I'm going to pick Michael Chandler this time. I've betrayed him previously, but this time I'm going to go for him.